Well, you've got to. You need thousands of bits of content a year now. You can't just go and produce one great video.
Yeah.
It's almost fast fashion. Content is fast fashion. Today's podcast, In Reviews We Trust, I have some really interesting guests. This is our first in-studio recording. I have Douglas Franklin from Penny Black and Jordan Bouchier-Lee from Klaviyo. Right, normally I'd introduce the guest and say, hi, this is Jordan. I'd introduce what he does, but because Jordan's job title is so long, I'm gonna let him do it. Go on, Jordan.
So I'm Jordan, and good attempt with a second name.
Yeah, I went for it.
It's a long French second name that means butcher.
Oh, right.
Not as eloquent as first.
So now I'm going to call you Jordan Bouchier-Lee.
Jordan Butcher, yeah, or Lee Butcher.
Yeah.
So I'm a technology partnerships manager at Klaviyo. Yeah, official title is Strategic Partnerships Manager of Technology Platforms in EMEA, but essentially technology partnerships manager. What that essentially means is I work with tech partners to better understand how to integrate into Klaviyo, to provide use cases that add value to both our customers, and also how we go to market with tech partners as well.
Yeah. And we also have Douglas. Douglas, can you introduce what Penny Black does and how you came to be the CEO?
Sure. So I'm Doug Franklin, founder and CEO of Penny Black. And what Penny Black is the newest marketing channel that you may or may not have heard about yet, right? So what we do is we bring in digitization and personalization into the real world using Penny Black. So, currently your marketing channels that you would think about, you've got your text, you've got SMS, you've got text, WhatsApp, email. But there's a moment that hasn't been captured yet, and that's the unboxing moment. And what we do at Penny Black is we allow you to bring that same level of personalization from those other channels to that moment.
Yeah. So I've heard so much about Penny Black from our other partners. So we have a partner in common, which is Pass Digital.
Yes.
So we do really well with those guys. They're a elite gold special partner of Klaviyo's, and I know they've done a partnership with you. We work with them really closely also. And they kind of introduced your product to me probably 6-7 months ago. And it was really interesting learning about the product and bringing in this physical real world aspect to data and customizing people's experience right down to the unboxing and how data is used in that unboxing. So can you just go through slightly how you integrate with Klaviyo?
Yeah, so the current Klaviyo integration is, we take all the data you capture through Klaviyo, so all the segments is the current use case we're working on at the moment. And so any segment you're creating in Klaviyo, you can use those same segments in Penny Black, right? So whether it be a first-time customer or a loyal customer, you put all that data through into Penny Black, and they can send these communications or marketing material at the moment they open their package. So that's how it works. The other use case, I guess, is then the data we capture at that unboxing moment. So once customers are engaging with their communication, we can then send information back to Klaviyo.
So how are you capturing that data from the unboxing? Are you doing QR codes? Are you doing URLs in there? How are you doing it?
It's a QR code. So it's a trackable QR code.
Awesome. So people use the QR code. What do they do when they open it? Or is it the interaction with the box?
It's as they scan the QR code.
Yeah.
That's what we'll track. So the QR code will take them to a variety of different places.
Right. So their website, but you've got a tracking on that.
Correct. Yeah.
QR code that goes back. Right. Okay. That's really interesting. We spoke about doing something where you could put a review QR code in, and they could scan that and that take them to leave a video review, and they could video the unboxing or, do a TikTok from the unboxing, really popular, get some marketing from the engagement. And then we could send the data back to Klaviyo to say, right, this person's reviewed, and then that goes into now in a different segment, and we kind of getting the data all around. There's so much now. There's so many data points on customers. How do you how do you deal with GDPR? You know, like, because obviously you're sending the data to them, you've got a data agreement, but it's your data agreement is with the provider, the same as reviews.io data agreement. Yeah, makes sense.
It's like the way we think about it, it's like this, you're describing, you've got this sort of virtuous cycle of reciprocity of data between all these platforms. I think that's important because, if we talk about customer data, there's the customer experience, and then there's why do you want a good customer experience? Because you want to develop long-term, trusting customer relationships, right?
Yeah.
And so to get that trust, it's a long-term journey. So customers want to get used to the fact that they're sharing this data with you, and how's that data then being used to improve their customer experience. And you can see all these touch points, adding up to create this real virtuous cycle. I think that we're seeing. So linking up reviews, linking up the data from Klaviyo, linking up the data Penny Black gathers. Using that is only going to enhance the customer experience.
No, I think bringing data into sort of the real world, like we were talking about earlier, bringing it into packaging, but also bringing it into like physical POS and bringing, physical mail and things like that is going to be huge. And I think that's something that's untouched at the minute, but it's going to get more and more, because obviously you get so many emails, but if something now arrives through the post for you, it's a unique experience. You can create this experience from the brand to you. And I think that's, going to start happening a lot more. You've got the holiday season coming up. And I think to break through the noise, you've got to do things a bit different.
Correct, yeah. It's a quieter moment, right? It's a quieter moment. It's not to say you don't have all your other channels, but what you'll learn is, that this is used together with the other channels you have, and different people have a different propensity to how they want to engage with the technology. So over time, you'll start using, hey, that segment of customers loves receiving this kind of physical communication,
right?
And you'll start learning, hey, so for that customer, we're going to send them the unboxing communication. For that customer, it might actually start seeing email works best. So you'll start building those things up over time.
It is such an interesting space, such an amazing space. So from the Klaviyo's point of view, what's a client that's using data really well at the moment? What's somebody who you look to and go, right, this brand's killing it at the moment. They're using all the data points, and they're doing it in the right way.
That's a really good question. I think there's kind of two brands that come to mind that they just, when you think about customer data, I don't just think about it as like all these different data points and pulling that into a sort of single customer view. That is what happens, but I think about it more as replace the idea of just having loads of customer data with the phrase of better understanding the customer.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really sort of important thing that I always kind of go back to as a kind of a summary of when I think about who's doing it well. And there's one example. They're like the UK's largest online fishmonger, for example.
Yes.
And they use the interactions that the customer has with their brand. They pull in all of the kind of usual stuff like product data, all that kind of stuff. And what they do is they basically reflect their marketing journey on that. So for example, if you go in and buy sea bass, the experience you're going to then get is post-purchase. You're then going to get marketing material that revolves around recipes for sea bass. You're going to get that type of product that you've bought and all the different kind of aftercare or inspirational bits of content. Right. Probably leveraging UGC as well to show that other people have done similar things.
Are doing this, yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting way of doing it. And they take that understanding of the customer of something so simple as they bought sea bass, and they've made that customer experience completely different. When it then comes around to sort of sale time or to that point of where you want to then upsell that customer, guess what? They hit you with products that are similar to the product that you bought before, or the other customers who did buy that product went on to buy. So that's one example I thought was really, really interesting. And I think I'm really bullish about sort of Penny Black as an additional channel.
Yeah, it's a new channel.
It's a new channel.
Yeah, it's probably the oldest channel, but all of a sudden it's a new channel.
Yeah, exactly. It's the channel that's probably not been leveraged and utilized as much as others. And I think that when you start thinking about this very simple sort of case study of a fishmonger that sells a customer sea bass and then starts to communicate with them after. You start to think about all these potential ideas of, well, actually, what if those recipes were in the box?
Yeah.
Or what if those recipes, or what if content or the inspirational content around that was in the package that it came? And I think that things like that, I don't think a lot of brands do that very well.
Yeah.
Because, and I did a session last week with a couple of our customers about this. And I think that when we start thinking about the situation we're in at the moment from like a sort of macroeconomic perspective,
Yeah.
you know, we've in person, great.
Yeah.
COVID's kind of old news. And so, but now we're starting to see all the kind of knock-on effects of that, and sort of consumer spending's going down, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Definitely.
And so, no matter what you sell, I'm going a bit of a rant here.
No,
so
no,
I'll keep
it's
going.
cool. Go ahead.
No matter what you sell, whether you sell luxury sofas, whether you sell sea bass, whether you sell whatever it may be, there is a moment in where that customer considers your purchase.
Yes.
Whether they say, I'm going to buy this, or I'm not going to spend my money on this. I'm going to buy, or I'm not going to buy. And that little consideration purchase for some brands, like the luxury sofa, is several weeks.
Yes.
For some, it's very impulsive. It's almost seconds. But no matter what you sell, because of the current way that consumers are thinking about and double taking on whether they spend a penny or save a penny,
Yeah.
that consideration purchase just got a little bit longer. And so I think that brands really have to start thinking about adding value beyond the product. Yeah. And I think that an example of this online fishmonger who gives recipes for sea bass when a customer buys, or even engages with sea bass.
Yeah, because I love this, because normally they just go, here's the product. Yep. It's the end of our relationship. Maybe I'll send you one email when it comes around to, you know, the holiday season. But apart from that, you're on your own. And now they're doing more. I love that. And I love that it's a fishmonger that's doing it.
Yeah.
You know,
like
that's
it's not fast fashion, cool streetwear.
I love that it's not some New York tech overly cool brand, you know, that it's not Warby Parker, that it's just this UK based brand doing this. And I think that's the interesting bit. I think that you're going to see smaller brands kind of innovating a little bit more. And I think they've got to actually differentiate themselves, and they've got to do more. They've got to do more in these little moments in the purchasing journey that they can delight the customer. We always talk about reviews. You know, make sure you delight the customer, and you collect the review from the customer at the moment of delight. So we ask, when we talk about, you know, collecting a review, I consistently tell our clients, find out what your customer's happiest point is. And that's got to be when they get that email, or they get that WhatsApp or SMS asking for the review. Now we can change things a little bit more with Penny Black, and we could say, well, actually, the moment of delight is that opening the box and doing that experience, and leave the review via QR instead of doing it via email. You'll probably still send the email and you'll still send the SMS, but that's probably the nearest moment of delight. And I think that's going to change a lot of things. I think we've got to expand that moment of delight through, like you're saying, getting printed material into the people.
I love the way you said that, expanding that moment of delight, because that's in fact what we've seen happen. We've actually got a mutual customer who's doing exactly this, right? It's a very niche product, and what they send, they've got a variety of products, but when they send, you know, a specific type of product, and so it's a tea brand, essentially, is they're sending someone a green tea, you get a recipe specific for that type of tea. Now, what's really interesting about extending this moment of delight is what we're actually seeing coming through with the data is that because these things are designed well, they're on brand, people aren't just going like picking it up, opening the box and throwing something in the bin. It gets pinned on their fridge. And then you see them engaging with this content 2, 3, 4 times over and over again because they keep going back. It's really nice, something they're proud of, something they keep on their. So it's opening up a whole new world of how to engage customers and gather data and insights and engage with them and improve their experience.
Yeah, no, I'd love to see the stats to see whether that tea brand actually collected more user-generated content and how much it increased word of mouth on social media and, in direct communication back to the brand, whether it, triggered more visits back to the brand's website and via email, whether they engage more with the email. So I'd love to know that's where it's going to get interesting to know, right, this small change in packaging made this change in our journey. It created meant more UGC. The knock-on effects were not just X, it was also we got Y, Z, and all the other letters of the alphabet.
You make a really interesting point, which I just want to kind of touch on, because UGC, I such a powerful
massive
channel to feed the insatiable content beast.
Yeah. Well, you need thousands of bits of content a year now. You can't just go and produce one great video.
Yeah.
One great advert. You've got to create it's almost fast fashion. Content is fast fashion. And probably, I don't know many brands that have got enough dollars to keep up with creating this content. You have to get your customers.
It can be free.
Yeah, that's it. You've got to get your customers involved in creating it, and it's free.
Yeah. But so going back to this idea of like shaping the customer experience based on who the customer is, I was talking to someone and they worked in an ad agency, doing TV commercials and all this kind of stuff. Very beautifully shot, kind of.
Yeah,
things. Polished. Perfect word, polished. And I was saying to like this person, I was like, oh, that's really interesting. What are you working on? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, do you do much with other channels like TikTok? And she said, no, TikTok is just not a good channel for what our creative agency does. We're more like the sort of John Lewis adverts, or if anyone knows kind of like Rafa or Specialized, they do very like beautifully looking, beautiful content. And I was like, oh, and TikTok's, and we were kind of talking, TikTok's very much like just sort of point of view, organic, in the home, or just, it's very like, it's very Gen Z. You can just call it like Gen Z.
Yeah.
But it's authentic. It has this kind of, there's kind of nuances to it. And then I was kind of, this conversation, I was going off and I was saying it's very much, that's the kind of the format of the content that's being consumed, and that's content that works on TikTok. And I've seen this all throughout LinkedIn, where it's like this video versus this video, and you've got kind of one which is polished, one which is like robotic voice, point of view, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And the robotic voice one performs unbelievably well compared.
Authentic.
But then you think, I'm sitting down at in this pub, and I'm talking to the person at the ad agency, and they're like, I don't get it. I care more for the polished content than the sort of point of view TikTok content. And then that kind of got me thinking, working at Klaviyo and thinking about these kind of things. But even when it comes down to like preference of channel, what we were talking about, it's also preference of content.
Yeah.
And so it's like, we have email, SMS, you might use WhatsApp, you might have direct mail or kind of like in-package marketing. You might also have all the other sort of paid channels. And not everyone's going to engage in all those channels.
No.
But to make things a little bit more complex, and not complex in a scary way, is that when you do find the channel they do engage with, what type of creative do they now engage with? And so this is something which I don't think marketers and brands have nailed yet.
It's difficult to understand, and I don't think they're getting enough feedback to actually know what channel and what type of marketing is really the one pushing through. Mm-hmm. I think at the minute we're doing a lot of spraying and praying.
Yeah.
But I do think, from what I see I see all the brands coming through, all the Gen Z brands coming through. They're just breaking through with this fast content. They're not, marketing dollars. Ads are more expensive than ever, mm-hmm. and they're making their customers do the work now, and they're making their customers reach do the work. So we have a really good solution within Reviews.io that actually we ask people, about their Instagram channel to verify their review. And then we'll go and look at their Instagram channel and we'll see how many followers they've got and everything else and what sort of stuff they post. And then we share that data with Klaviyo. And we can see now, not every customer has the same power of voice. That unfortunately, that's the world we live in. And we've seen that some customers are so much more powerful than others. And it's about engaging with that brand advocate. So if we see somebody who's written a 5-star review, it's a great review, they've uploaded an image and everything else, and then they're massive on TikTok, that's the guy, we push that data into Klaviyo, that's the guy or girl that brand should be engaging with and harnessing their power. They should be sending them free products and saying, hey, do us a TikTok, hey, do us an Instagram video. And the brands that are doing that are growing so quickly because they're not blowing all of their budget. They're really laser focusing their budget on brand advocates. They're not going out and getting these fake influencers. They're actually getting influencers that have actually made a purchase and already written a review and then having that authentic experience. And that's the difference. It is becoming where your brand consumers are seeing through these paid influencers.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm noticing.
And do you think this is the difference, I guess, between brands who are really committing to and being brave and taking that long-term view? This is about us really understand, not saying we're going to understand customer data.
Yeah, actually doing it.
Yeah, we're actually going to do it. We're committing to it. We're taking the long view.
Yeah.
We realize that it's going to take time to build up a good view of this customer, right? It's not going to happen on day one. It might happen on day 720 on it, but iteratively they're building up that profile by getting them to buy more, share more data, and it builds up rather than brands that say we're doing it, but actually you're just in that acquisition.
Closest to the customer is always one.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get a customer to come back to your store regularly, or if you can understand that customer, it's that thing where, right, I madly started off working in a nightclub. That was my best.
Not this one.
No, not this. This used to be an old nightclub, but no, not this one. So my dad had a nightclub and he passed away and I had to run it. And one thing he always taught me was like, really understand the people who are coming in and to get them coming in every week, you have to know what they all want. And everybody wanted something different. It was a real weird thing. It was only a small club, 300-400 people. And I kind of worked out really easily over a period of time what he meant for me to do. He passed away and I sort of took over. And I kind of worked out what everybody's favorite drink was. I had people come in at exactly the same time of night, every Saturday night, every Friday and Saturday night. And I kind of worked out because I remembered everybody's name. It was really important for me to when they came in, I was like, oh, I know this person. Hi, Jack. Come on, let's look after you this way. And by knowing your customer better, I was able to better serve them. And they became more loyal to me. And that's something that's followed on through, now what I do with the reviews and what I kind of try and mentor e-commerce brands and talk to e-commerce brands around. What we're talking about now is getting closer to that customer. And you're getting close to that customer via the data because you're not meeting them in person anymore. They're not coming into your shop. They're not coming into your store where you're building that relationship. You're looking them in the eye. But actually, you're learning all of that without knowing that person really now. But it's kind of, I used to be, it was in the clubs, I would be like, right, well, this person brings 50 people. He's the most popular guy and girl in town. And I was like, let him in, But that's almost where we've got now. And this is kind of what we're saying now. You've got these brand advocates, but if you're not doing anything with them, it's a real lost asset. And you've got to harness the power of these advocates. And that's something we're really passionate about, reviews. But you've got to do that properly, you've got to use the data within Klaviyo and you've got to know what's going on there, but also you've got to push it through to what's delivered through the door to that person. I really think not enough brands are understanding who the most powerful customers are.
And I think, because I agree. And I think about I imagine a brand listening or watching this or whatever would say, yeah, but I need to drive sales. I've got quarterly goals, this kind of stuff. And I valid point, valid kind of not objection, but it's a valid sort of front of mind point to have. And then I just think about, if you don't do that and you don't understand your customer, create an experience which is in line with what they expect or what they should be getting, you're kind of giving up tomorrow's revenue.
You're giving up tomorrow's revenue, but also you're on that wheel of, you've got to push more money into paid advertising to keep the wheel spinning, to keep your business going.
Or go on like blanket sales.
Yeah.
Which means you're selling your products.
You're either going to discount or you're going to throw more money at paid. Yeah. So the Google and Facebook become richer and you essentially become poorer, and you end up competing on price more and not on experience. And that's the problem.
But they're not mutually exclusive, are they? I mean, because you've got to acquire the customers. It's about having that long-term view. Is actually, we want to retain these customers. We want to retain them. We want to retain them. So yes, there'll be that acquisition engine, but it's but actually where we want to go is retaining these customers the long term. So I mean, that eye on the future whilst trying to build that up now.
Yeah, and it's building customer loyalty.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, definitely. So you worked, I know from your CV, you worked previously, talking about loyalty, you worked at Loyalty Line.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, and that obviously plays into that. You obviously seen that with Loyalty Line, that, you know, you had that, you knew about that, creating loyalty and keeping that customer rewarded so they kept engaged with the brand.
Yeah, and I just think, I mean, this is quite a sort of timely time to sort of talk about it, because we've got Black Friday coming up.
Yeah.
But for me, it's always been strange that brands will pull levers to get sales through the door. Like you said, pumping a hell of a lot of money into paid ads or discounting heavily. Obviously, Black Friday has a kind of cultural expectation of discounting, so I'm not saying you shouldn't be doing that. But when you start to use these kind of like myopic strategies of like, let's achieve the short term, let's not think 6 months in the future, the things that you do is you alienate the customers who, talking about discounts specifically here, have paid full price for your product. You're alienating customers who have gone through quite a long consideration journey to get your product, and then boom, the next message they get,
flash sale
or whatever, or even just an upsell or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like, actually, you should add value around that whole experience at every single touch point. And to the kind of the economics of it, you know, I'm trying to hit these numbers, blah, 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 blah. It's, if you're a brand and you're going to do a 50% Black Friday sale, and I'm not saying don't do this, but you've got to get double the amount of customers. And even when you get double the amount of customers, you're still earning less than if you just got half the amount of customers at full price. You're still buying that product at unit cost twice.
Yeah.
And so it's like, these are the kind of things that I really think about when you think about sort of customer loyalty and you think about creating a personalized marketing experiences.
Yeah.
Just think about that customer, not just as the route to next sale, but think about that customer for the next 3-4 years.
Yeah, definitely. We've been working with a brand, a massive fashion brand, one of the high-end fashion brand, one of the biggest in the UK, probably one of the biggest in Europe. And we've been doing something with them this year to do, so they don't want to do a blanket Black Friday sale like normal. They're going to be really selective this year, and they're actually going to do something the day before for brand advocates, for people who have left them a 5-star review in the last 2 years. And they're going to give those people access to a code to go in, and it's sort of like a secret sale just for their brand advocates. And I thought that was a bit different than what I've seen previously. I thought that was quite interesting. Day before, giving it and going, actually, this is the sale, but we're only going to do it to our advocates.
That's really cool. I mean, that's a much cooler way of doing it, because normally, if, to Jordan's point, you get that, double your people paying 50% off, but then they drop you like a day. So not only have you discounted your product, you've only got them once and they're gone. Whereas with that, right, a smaller select group, you're really rewarding them. What are the chances that they're going to buy again and again from much higher, isn't it? Yeah,
and they're kind of rewarding them for that feedback. You're not allowed to incentivize for feedback. We don't agree with that so much, especially on company reviews you're not allowed to incentivize at all because that's against Google guidelines, and we need those reviews to go into Google. But this is a way of kind of building a little club, similar to how you would with a loyalty program. And it has become interesting. What mistakes do you see brands make around data?
I think that I don't think they understand what we as providers, experts, calling yourself an expert is quite a thing, isn't it?
It's a weird thing.
It's a weird thing. Yeah. Anyway, but I don't think they understand really what we mean by data. I think that brands really need to understand what, again, going back to this useful tactic of replacing data with understanding the customer.
Yeah.
And that is just like the technical part of understanding it.
Yeah.
And so I think that brands don't understand it, and I think that's one thing they do. And I think that what brands should be doing is they should sit down and they should think, if I could understand my customer and I could ask my customer questions, what would I ask about them? What do I want to know about them that's going to help me in my job to sell them on why my brand is good, or sell them on why these new products are good, or whatever their kind of objectives are. And then once they've got an understanding of that, they should, one, look at their data sources, and they should try and gather that from first-party data. If they're trying to, and I'll give a quick example of this. If a marketer who is working for a kind of multi-category, almost like a sort of department store where they sell, a little bit of everything. If they said, we'd love to understand what our customers are interested in. We'd love to understand whether they like the pet products we have, or the men's fashion that we have, or the homeware that we have. You can capture that. Yeah. That is all accessible through behavioral data that they are giving you, as long as you capture it, on site every time they interact with your brand. And I think that's kind of one thing, is like this kind of idea of like first-party data providing you with this rich insight into that customer. And the second thing is that zero-party data. Once you understand what you want to know about your brand, if you can't capture it because it's not an interaction or it's not a behavioral thing that you can measure, just ask them. Yeah. And you don't have to bombard them at checkout with 20 questions.
Yeah.
Every interaction you have with them, ask them one little question.
Yeah, I agree. That's what they should be doing.
Because that is going to get brands to a position where they truly better understand their customer.
Yeah.
And it's not data anymore,
I think micro surveys like what we're talking about there, it is going to be the way forward in 2023. Or, I think it's there now. I think the big, some great brands are now doing these micro surveys to back up their knowledge of the customer already, to learn about a little bit more and to join together these dots. For me, I think that if I was looking at that, I think nobody owns it. That's my problem, is that people are too busy in marketing, sales, in the C-suite. But nobody seems to own the data at the minute. They're just like, oh, it's a nicety.
Yeah.
And they're not treating it as an essential part of their business.
And then it never gets done.
Yeah.
I agree. And I just think that it's like, I'm biased. I work with integrations at Klaviyo, but I and our partners have spent hundreds, if not thousands, if not tens of thousands of hours making parts of that data capture on that syncing of data and that unification of data so easy. Yeah. And people, I was in Berlin, and I was doing a kind of a workshop with a load of e-commerce agencies there, and I was with Reviews.io's sort of German GM. Yeah. And we kind of did this presentation around kind of how you can pull data into Klaviyo and how you can leverage it for different customer experiences, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, an agency put their hand up and said, oh, we use this help desk and I don't see this in the platform. And so I said, have you integrated it? And they were like, oh, I don't know. And I said, my one takeaway, if you forget everything else I say, when you next get your account or your client's account, whether you're merchant or agency or whatever, look at your tech stack and integrate it into Klaviyo.
Yeah.
Even if you don't even use that data, pull it all in, let it sit at that Jordan's, profile level.
Yeah.
Because that is already accessible, and you can already start to leverage that. For the other stuff, the asking questions, owning data capture, all of that kind of stuff. I would agree with you. I think that actually, if no one is responsible for it, that makes it really tricky to actually action.
Yeah.
But yeah.
With Penny Black, do you obviously you've got a great business, and you've got a great product. But what's the biggest objection when you go into a brand and you go, hey, I can help you with this packaging idea, and I can, you're already using Klaviyo, you're already using reviews.io, but I really want to show you what Penny Black can do, and this is what I can help you with. What's that biggest objection?
Yeah, the first one is trying to get people to see it as a marketing channel. I mean, I think that was the first thing. People like, you have something to do with fulfillment or printing. Like, no, this is your digital marketing channel. It's the same flexibility as any. So that was the first one. And the second one is like, how does it work? Right. So what do I have to do, to get this set up? And actually, that's what I explained to them, the expertise that Penny Black's built up. So, the reason why we partner with Klaviyo is they've got the data knowledge, right? We're not the data expert.
Yeah.
What we do really well is that connection, being able to send something in real time to a fulfillment center in the middle of nowhere, and get it printed to go in your box in sort of like real time.
Yeah.
And trying to explain that process to brands, how that works. And the answer is you don't have to worry about it. That's what we worry about.
Right. So how do you do a demo on your platform? Because obviously you've got this physical bit. With reviews, I can go in and go, well, there's a demo, did X, Y, Z, send you a review request, you write a review, we've seen the whole process. Klaviyo is a bit similar. Go in, you can see a customer and you can send an email, but your product is physical, so how do you do that?
We send them samples, right? That's the best way to do it. It's sort of like, what do you want to look at? So, and customers some customers request us to do samples in their brand, for a specific use case, and we can send them to them, or we can send, sort of like some mock-ups, whatever it might be. But that's the best way to communicate the physical nature of it. So that's how we do it. And then videos. to show the steps of the process and show how it works. Because it's something to get your head around. You can see early on people are like, what? I don't understand. And you're going,
because I was thinking about the business. And I learned about Penny Black before this, and I learned about it obviously before when I got introduced to the brand. I was like, hey, it's a great product, but I just wonder how they're going to get over this thing of you've got a physical thing and you've got a digital thing and showing it all together. Right? And don't get me wrong. What's your perfect client look like?
Oh, we've got many. So Shopify, Klaviyo.
So they've got, so that's two attributes.
Shopify, Klaviyo. I mean, I think volume plays an important part. I mean, with this is because, it's not like email or text where you can send loads out. It's obviously generated by a purchase. So I think brands doing 5 to 10,000 plus orders a month is a good profile. Brand where we really start seeing the value.
And are you global yet, or are you just UK?
UK and Europe. We do UK and Europe at the moment,
Okay. And have you got plans to go into America?
We've got worldwide plans, right? No, we do. No, I mean, I think...
Well, you've just done a raise, so
we have, we do. And I mean, I think the way it works is we go where we set up a core part of our proposition is obviously being able to work with fulfillment centers.
Right.
And fulfillment centers, of course, operate globally. So once we've integrated once, it makes it a lot easier for us to expand internationally. So,
So I see a great... Obviously, Shopify is putting hell of a lot into logistics.
Yes.
That's their big thing that that's the only way they can really take it to Amazon in this last mile thing is, conquering third-party logistics. And I think your brand alongside that could grow almost. They're the shark and you're the little fish underneath, but becomes the massive fish.
That's exactly right? Because we see, Amazon's all about, they do in one sense a good customer experience because, it's fast, right? So you get the next day, but it's in this brown box, right? That just turns up.
Yeah.
Where we want to play is in a different space where it's about customer experience. They don't get a brown box, they get a nice, open their package and there's a nice communication. That's hyper personalized. That feels more like, Shopify, and that's why we want to play in that space and where we working towards. That's exactly what we intend.
Yeah, I think the market's huge for you guys. I think you've got a really unique product and a really unique take on the market. I can definitely see more and more brands looking towards your product in the future. So At this part of the show, I kind of ask, basically, I want to learn what I should be reading, what I should be looking at and doing. So I try and learn from my guests. And we talk about, hey, what have you been reading, watching, podcast, newsletter, book, movie, anything that's inspired you and you think our customers or I'd like to learn from?
I'm gonna give you two options.
Okay.
Two paths.
Okay.
The first is going to be, the first may change your life.
Okay, go.
The second may change your professional.
I'm going to change my career?
Not career. I was going to say career, and then I was like, actually, no,
Professional
that's
outlook.
your professional outlooks. So
Okay.
you've got one that potentially changes your life, one that potentially changes your sort of your professional sphere.
Okay.
A or B? What would you go for?
I've got to go with A.
Okay, so this is a bit left field.
Okay, go. I love left field. This is why I asked this question.
Yeah.
You've got to widen your expanse of learning, and that's what it's all about.
A book called Why We Sleep
Okay.
by Matthew Walker, and I'm going to butcher this summary, but I'll give it a go. It's basically about, well, what it says on the tin.
Why you sleep.
Reviews does reviews, and
Yeah.
Why You Sleep tells you about why you sleep. But it is about why you sleep, and that's like such a trivial thing, right? It's we sleep because we want to recuperate. But then he actually kind of frames it in this way of we sleep a third of our time.
Yeah.
Every animal sleeps, and sleep is the most counter evolutionary thing you can do. For a third of your life, you fall down, you close your eyes, and you are not aware of all the dangers and ills around you.
Yeah.
It should, if sleep was not a third, if it was not such an important thing to take up a third of our life, we should not do it, and those who didn't sleep would have survived, and those who did would have died.
Yes.
And so if you sort of frame it in that perspective,
In the evolutionary
world of kind of survival of the fittest and kind of, weakness kind of dies off sort of thing, it kind of goes into all the things around sleep. And it is just, when I'm not going to ruin the book for anyone who wants to read it.
What do they recommend? What are they recommending on hours? Because I've always been interested. Because as a kid, I can remember, and I'm showing my age here, Margaret Thatcher saying men should only sleep 7 hours, and women should sleep 7 hours, men should sleep 6 or something like that. Which was, I was terrified of this because I was like, I love sleep.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like that, 6 hours, and I'm a man.
That's way.
And I'm at school, and I'm like that. I tried it, and I went, oh.
Thatcher was wrong about some things, and she was definitely wrong about that fact.
Yeah.
Not that I'm this kind of like pseudo sleep scientist now after reading this book. But,
you can't just read a book and be there. But
I mean, sometimes
I do want to learn from it, and maybe I've not got time to read the book.
But it's 8 hours, and what
Right.
it does is it walks through the reasons why we sleep and all this kind of stuff, and the mechanism behind it. You remember more. You're a better learner. You comprehend things more. You deal with emotions better. You lose weight, you gain muscle, you are able to think at a higher level. And when we think about that idea, and people sleep at different times during their life, and when we think about that whole idea and how people, and I think this is why it's kind of relevant to this kind of professional sphere as well, is because there is such a culture of like grind hard and all this kind of stuff.
I was going to say this. There's this big thing on Twitter, but now there's this counter balance thing that they're all saying now, don't hustle hard, sleep more, and that's the latest thing seems to be on Twitter.
But so there are that whole kind of like work hard sort of hustle culture, and then this kind of counter culture of like, that's fun arguments that I like seeing on Twitter and LinkedIn. But it's with sleep, it's just such a simple thing that people just neglect. And there's one thing that kind of, and people probably listening to this, and maybe even you might be thinking, oh, whatever. But there is a mass experiment that they've done.
Yeah.
And the mass experiment is where they can measure the sleep of about 3 billion people, and they do it twice a year in the northern hemisphere. The clock's changing. And so when the clocks go forward, people generally tend to lose an hour.
Yeah.
Because they don't plan ahead.
And then what happens? world falls to pieces? More people rant on social media? What is it?
The heart attack rate spikes. And we're thinking about macro units, right?
Yeah.
Because all of the physiological effects of lack of sleep, blah, 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 when you compile it to 4 billion people or whatever that number is, when they have 1 hour sleep, you literally see the heart attack rates go up. And when the clocks go back, or where you gain an hour, the heart attack rate drops for the next 24 hours.
That is insane.
It's just good for your mind and your body. And I think that a lot of people don't do it.
I love sleep. Big fan.
So that is my massive tangent away from e-commerce.
I love that. And I think there is this culture of, Elon Musk sleeps at the end of the desk, hustle hard, drive a Lamborghini, get involved in crypto and don't sleep. And I think it's mainly bullshit by people who really haven't done that, but say they've done it to get there. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of sleeping. Probably said it already. Yeah, I like it. I like that.
I'm like literally thinking.
I know. Me and you have got a big one. I've got. Oh my gosh. How do you top that?
Well, I'll try. So I'm gonna stick to the left field, right? So option saying it's going to change your life.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with The Martian. If you haven't read the book, have you seen the movie? With Matt Damon when he gets stuck on Mars, right? And so the reason I'm picking this, it's for me, it's the perfect sort of analogy really for building starting a business, a startup, right? Yeah. So and what it takes to build a team, right? And at Penny Black, we actually call ourselves the everyday astronauts, and it's because of this book. So everyone who joins Penny Black, this is the book you read, The Martian. And the reason is, right, so if you're an astronaut, you start thinking about it as an analogy for, the type of person you want or the culture you want to build. If you think about an astronaut, first thing is, it's the best of the best, top of the class. You don't get a D in maths and, go to space, right? So that's the first thing. So you've got these, high achievers. Ex me, by the way. My team, high achievers, but high achievers.
Hiring the high achievers.
Yeah, hiring the high achievers.
Yeah, that's a job in itself.
Yeah. So you've got like this group of, high achievers. Second thing is they're mission focused, right? So you don't go to space if to collect a paycheck, right? I'm sure most astronauts would do it just like we want to go explore and do something that's never been done before. I think the third thing is around perspective. The great thing about astronauts, right? You always see them looking back at the Earth from space, and it's always calm and gives you perspective and helps you be calm and remain just sort of like relaxed when everything around you might seem like it's falling down. And then, I guess if anyone finally, I'll get to the point here. If anyone's ever seen those sort of any space movie, right? There's always a fire in the hole, and they have to fix something with like a paper clip and a toilet roll. If they have those on spaceships, they don't have toilet roll actually, but they've got to you plug it in. But it's a perfect analogy. Your time's running out. You've got limited resources. You've got to solve big problems quickly, or else you die. And for me, that's kind of like a startup, right? That's what it takes.
That's definitely a startup. It's building the plane on the way down, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you've got to do that.
Yeah. So for us, that's what it's about. So we're trying to build this culture around this sort of like concept of, if I say just that perfect analogy of what awesome team would be is like being an astronaut. That's what be an astronaut.
I love that. That is awesome. That's great analogy for being involved in a startup, especially one that's doing something like you are, where it's quite a frontier space. You're kind of developing the tech as you're going along. No one's gone out and done it before. You're making your own way. I do like that. Honestly, both of those answers were brilliant, and it just shows what great guests you are. Thank you for joining me today on the podcast. It's been brilliant to have you both in the studio, and hopefully our listeners enjoy it. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks.